All right, 1 minute before we start. Is everyone from Sweden? Ja, så jag kan stort sett prata svenska om jag vill. Ja, men jag kommer prata för engelska. To be inclusive to everybody that will listen to this session later on YouTube, on Sweetug's YouTube channel. Yes. How's everyone today? It's the last session, one of the last sessions, day two of Sweden Gothenburg. Do you still have the energy to learn from me today? Yes, that's good. I hope you got some fika and some coffee to keep you energized in the next 45 minutes of this session. Okay, so today, I will be speaking a new topic that I never delivered in other conferences before, and it's also a pretty new feature in Azure. I both like talking about Azure Functions, Azure Durable Functions in one of my previous talks, and now container apps and building something with containers is something that we developers need to get caught up in learning more how we do that. Is it good for all of our problems? Probably not, because it always depends on the use case of we're trying to build or we're trying to solve, and also the platform, the programming language. So I will be sharing about how to develop event-driven cloud-native apps using Azure Functions on ACA, or Azure Container Apps. So let's kickstart to with this question. And to those of you inside this room who is brave enough to share, why should we consider putting serverless functions in a container? What do you think? It's a hard question. I kind of like came up with it yesterday when I'm preparing this question. I mean, this presentation, I said, why? I mean, because when we want to learn something or build something, like when we're solving a use case, we want to know, why are we doing this? Is this the best solution that we have for this like use case or problem? Who wants to try to answer this one? Scaling? Yes, thank you. What's your name? Mario. Thank you, Mario. Who else? Guess. Hmm? Thank you. What's your name? Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, we will find out. This is one of the the answer the question that we will try to discover together today, because I myself is also pretty new to this, and I told one of the speakers earlier this morning, it's my first time I'm going to speak about this topic, and sooner or later one person, that includes myself, should dare share a new technology to other developers. And this is the moment. Okay, so who am I? This is not my first time speaking at Swedog, especially in Swedog Gothenburg. I spoke last year as well. But to those who don't know me, I'm Jonah Anderson. I am from Sweden, in Norrland, in Sundsvall area, outside Hudiksvall, Sundsvall. And I traveled by train, by flying as well to be here and share this knowledge. So I work as a senior Azure consultant at Solidify, one of our like community sponsors as well, in this conference. And by heart, I have been a .NET developer for at least 8, 9 years since I started working as an IT consultant here in Sweden. But recently, I'm like a go-to developer architect working with cloud and DevOps engineering lately in my project. I'm very active as a Microsoft MVP for Azure. I run Azure User Group Sweden, and I wrote a book about Azure because of my lessons learned, which I will be giving away today to all of you. So if you just like spend 1 minute grab your phone if you want. I don't have the book. I'm sorry. One looked at my table. Where is your book? I was in a hurry to come over here yesterday because I remote worked as well. I forgot to pack and I was traveling light. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give away like some ebooks to some of you, and I'm gonna send out 2 or 3 signed copies to you if you win the raffle when you sign. So if you want a copy, just sign, and that's how the book looks like. It's the bluebird. All right. Oh, everyone finished? Okay, I hope so. Okay, so I want to share with you about building cloud natives on Azure. So when you're building like technologies on Azure, there are different categories for it. So there is one that is community driven, as you can see in the corner there, the KEDA, the Dapr, Kubernetes, and other tools. And then there's the development tools such as GitHub, Visual Studio, API management, ACR, container registry. And then there's security tool services for cloud native, like it should be Azure Intra ID, not Active Directory. There's Azure Policy Defender. There might be some things that I missed. There's AI when you're building cloud native. There is managed databases for both SQL and non-structured databases, as well as like storage. And there's so much more, like Azure Arc for cloud migration or hybrid migration. And then what we're focusing today is the containers and serverless services that has, which is 2 of them in this group. We will have learn about Azure Functions and Container Apps. So what is Azure Functions? Who among you have worked with or developed .NET with Azure Functions in the room? Almost half. Great. Durable functions. It's one of my favorite as well. So event-driven, when we're working with Azure, then Azure Functions is a good alternative. And not just Azure Functions, but there is also another variation of it, which is more user-friendly, which is the Azure Logic app. Is also a great serverless like service in Azure. So Azure Functions, it's a serverless compute used for application development. It supports some programming languages that we have, including .NET or C#. And it has 2 types. So there's the standard one, which is the Azure Functions, and then the durable functions that supports a few major languages that is used for stateful workflows. So if you have workflows that needs to run in parallel and do aggregation, you can also do that. It's a separate like topic itself to develop with durable functions, but it is one of the extensions of Azure Functions that I like. And then Azure Functions, one of the reasons why many are considering it, especially for event-driven type of solutions on Azure in .NET application, it's because it is flexible. It is like consumption-based. You pay for the instances of your services and the events that you're trying to do. So this is the current, if you're gonna create a function app, for example, on Azure, on the Azure portal, these are the different hosting plans or flexible hosting plans that you as a developer, you and your team can choose. So there's a hosting plan for consumption, meaning pay as you go. There's a new one that's currently on preview, which is the flex consumption. The functions premium, if we have more demand for like event scaling and more like production requirements. App service plan, you can also have it. And then this one, which is the container apps environment type of hosting option, especially for if you're using Azure Functions with container apps that requires you, as you can see, there's this option for scale to 0, the demand that you have, the VNet requirement that you have, the dedicated compute that you need, and also the number of like scale out instances that you have. So this, you see the table side by side, which one is suitable for your use case. So each application, is different depending on how you are deploying it, or who are the users. So for example, there are instances that are used for non-production, and there are also instances that are used for production workloads that are like enterprise grade. So probably you would consider those that are more, that has more capabilities. And of course, you have to think about prices, because cloud can be very expensive. So don't put your Azure Functions or container apps in high-level premium cost if you know you're just going to use it for testing or non-production use. So these are good to know, at least in my perspective. So Azure Container Apps, Azure Functions, we got a good crowd who have worked or work with .NET and Azure Container Apps. We have a few, yes, some. The rest are learning with me also, with us today. That's great. So Azure Container Apps, it's basically like Azure Functions as well. Like you don't need to worry about the underlying infrastructure behind the scenes. It's like a platform as a service. But it's more on building containerized application on Azure, and is considered a serverless compute. So now the interesting part is like you're putting in another serverless compute, which is Azure Functions, into another serverless compute service, which is the container apps. And that's interesting. I was, before I came here today, because I'm one of the sessions, so I didn't rush to go here early. Honest, I watched a few sessions earlier, but what I did is that I went to the gym in my hotel, and then I was like doing my treadmill, and then I'm gonna talk about Azure Container Apps. And then I saw there's like a lot of containers in the window where I was doing my gym, and I was thinking, oh, there's a big container, and then there's another small container. And I was in my mind, I was like imagining, oh, that small container is Azure Functions, and I'm putting it in the big, the big box. So basically, we're combining the two powers of Azure Functions and Azure Container Apps. So what's good, or what's behind ACA, or this technology, which is very trendy and good to know or learn as a developer, especially in this cloud native microservices type of use case scenario type of projects that we get in our consulting jobs, or like Teams projects sometimes. So it is powered by Kubernetes and other open source services such as Dapr, KEDA, and Envoy. And Azure Container Apps supports different kinds of jobs and tasks in terms of like on demand, on schedule, or any event-driven type that you have. So this is the possible like use case. As you can see also in the Microsoft Docs documentation, there is an option for like public API if you want to like integrate that and have the option for auto scaling. You want to process background processing, event processing as well, and microservices. So you see also the criteria that they have when it comes to like scaling option. So which feature of ACA suits your use case actually depends on what you're trying to do. So it might be a microservice architecture that you have in your applications that needs to talk to each other. But then when you have a lot of microservices, which is very typical when the production apps grows, it can be very complex also for them to talk to each other. So that's why with the help of like Dapr and KEDA integration with container apps, it's easier to kind of like solve that complexity. So container apps behind the scenes, just to those that are new to this technology, is that there's like an environment. And inside the container apps environment, you can build as many containers as you want, which is called like a microservice also. So you can have, you can have one, for example, that acts as a publisher, just say a web shop that processes the order. And then another one first you have the checkout that does the ordering, and then you have another microservice that does the processing of the order. And maybe there's another microservice that sends out email or process the delivery of that. And these are this is one example on how revisions of a container app works when it comes to, like this example, HTTP requests. And then I did mention Dapr as something that will help with the complexity of microservices. So it handles complex scenarios, like for example, having a container app that has a client and a service. Using the Dapr sidecar, without explaining it in details technically in this one, it allows them to communicate with each other using the pub-sub communication method without kind of like affecting the state of it. This, like in simple terms. So one big example of how it looks in this example architecture. So you have a container registry with all these different container apps that acts as a ingestion service, package service. There's one that handles the drone scheduling service. There's a container app that does the delivery, the workflow. That one is actually Azure Logic app that you can combine with your microservice. And then you can integrate other services in terms of monitoring, such as the application insights, log analytics if you want. This is just a simple example in this case. And then there's a Dapr-enabled container app. So here you have a pub sub kind of container app, 2 containers, very simple. And you have a Dapr sidecar that is being used to communicate between these 2 services, especially if there are a lot of things or jobs going on in parallel. So there's a service bus behind the scene, as you can see, which will be my example also later on my code demo. So Azure Functions and Container Apps. So does anybody now has an idea of an answer? I mean, more answer to the question that we had from the beginning. Based on what you learned halfway, I still have a code to show. Any more, aside from the 2 nice guys and developers that answered? Anybody else that has more to add in the middle? What do you think? Why do we need, I mean, why is it good? Or is there a good thing about putting in serverless inside a container? What is it for? Anybody? No? Okay. Shy and tired? Okay. Yeah, let's continue. So, when it comes to building Azure Functions on container, there are like things or pointers or concepts that we need to learn. Like for example, when you create your container apps environment for the first time, you actually have manage resource group. It's not like the typical resource group that you build when you create applications in Azure. They are called manage resource group. And the reason why it is done so, it's because it is to protect your applications from unexpected like changes on your container services. And when you build a new function app in the same manage resource group, it goes to that same group. I will tell you the consideration and some limitations it has soon. Back to the question we're still trying to discover. And here are the pros. So we're trying to answer this one, and here are the pros and reasons why you would want to put an Azure container or Azure Functions in a container. So when you need to run your applications alongside with other microservices or containerized environment, that's one of the good use case scenarios. And if you want to extend your app service plan to meet other kind of use case, like for example, you have other APIs or other containers that or services in Azure that you want to talk to or integrate. When you're building Azure Functions and Container Apps, it uses container images that is based on programming languages that you are using. So there is this, for example, it supports .NET, Java, and Node.js. And then if you're gonna build one on locally, for example, so it is required to have like an Azure Functions based. And then depending on the language that you have, so there's one for .NET, there's also another special one if you're using Azure Functions isolated for .NET, and then the Java, the Node, PowerShell, and also Python. So there are some considerations to think about. One of them that I know that's not listed in here is that you can actually use manage identity with the setup between Azure Functions and Azure Container Apps. But there's one thing that you need to think when you're considering to move or build something with Azure Functions and ACA. One of its consideration and limitation is actually you cannot move your container app hosted functions between resource group and subscriptions. So that's why when you probably are still in the planning phase, it's good to consider like choosing the right resource group for this specific type of group of project, if you know what I mean. Because later on, when you regret, when you already have it in production, and then you regret, oh, that function app or that container app should have been in the resource group or another environment, then it might be a complicated or time-consuming option because it will take time and it's not supported yet. So when using container apps, you don't have direct access to lower level Kubernetes API. So if you have that need, probably you need to reconsider. And the next one, only triggers, the following triggers, HTTP, Q storage, Service Bus, and Azure Event Hub and Kafka are the triggers that you can scale from zero from zero instances. The rest has its limitation as well. And there's also limitation when it comes to like managed identity services connection. And once you already have built the Azure Functions and Container Apps, you can't modify the CPU and memory allocations in the portal. You would need to use the CLI. So the Azure CLI, so you need to do the command line and learn to hack Azure that way behind the scenes. So what are the prerequisites when you are developing with Azure Container Apps? So you would need to at least have the latest .NET SDK. Right now we have 8, and I know 9 is coming. Azure Functions core tools, this version and also the latest, whatever is the latest coming up. Azure CLI, if you need to run the commando for talking to Azure behind the scenes, and even when you're working with containers. Azure subscription, of course, to deploy your services, and a Docker account if you want to test your container images on Azure Functions locally. And also if you want to publish that container image to ACR or Azure Container Registry, because you can choose between ACR, Azure Container Registry, and Docker Hub also from that option. So this is a good presentation because I was like documenting the steps that I did. So usually there's so many steps when you're working or developing with multiple. First, you need to do the back-end part of coding your logic in the function app, right? It's the very first step. And this one is just like creating the infrastructure when you're gonna deploy the Azure Function apps. So first, you need to create your Azure Function app, put your logic, choose the right trigger, HTTP or Q storage, whatever trigger that you need for your microservice application. And then you need to set up your Docker build file. And you can do that by having your own Docker file that you configured yourself. Or you can also do like an initialization of a Docker file within the function app, and there's a command for that. And then you test your Azure Functions and try to build it in the container, and you can test it using your Docker desktop if you have it locally, along with VS Code or an IDE like Visual Studio. And then you run it, you put a tagging inside it, and then you kind of like make sure that you're using the recommended container image for Azure Functions. And there's actually different, as I showed, there's one for .NET and .NET isolated, and there's also for the different programming languages as well. And then you publish the container, the image to container registries such as Azure Container Registry or ACR. Or what you can do is you can create an Azure Container App service on Azure portal. And then when you already have an existing ACR like registry that has a container, existing containers, images inside it, you can link them together as well. Or you integrate your local repo from another source control. You can also do that. So there are different ways to kind of connect them together. So it's very flexible. And then there's a lot of steps. So when you have done that, you need to make sure, I mean, you can create a function app. It can just like get triggered. But in a function app, if you worked with Azure Functions before, you know that you're going to link to your Azure Storage, Azure Storage Web Jobs connection. You need to connect to a database. You need to integrate it with whatever front-end or back-end applications that you have. So there are next steps in that. And it's a long process, and it can be unique also for your case. So when you're trying to push a local container image to a container registry, Azure Portal is pretty smart to guide as well. So it kind of like gives you the step-by-step how you would do it, and give you some examples. So this command line is something that you would need to do using the Azure CLI. So when I worked with this, I used VS Code to do the push to the registry and testing locally as well. But before that, I had to create the ACR service already with that name, Registry Suite 2024. Make sure that in my IDE or VS Code, I have logged in on Azure. Otherwise, I won't be able to run that command and say, hey, what are you doing? You're not connected to the cloud. Are you pushing something somewhere else? So that's one option. And then if you want to associate the Azure Container Apps with an existing container image that you already have published in your ACR or registry, then you kind of like give it a name. You choose if you want an ACR or Docker, if you have that already. And then you give it like an image name, the version tag, you choose that if you have some kind of like argument, override options. And then the deployment stack, and also in the ACA, you can use your workload profiles as well. So that's good. So this is the command if you're doing the CLR. So sometimes you want to update your image. You have a new tag version. So using the CLI, or you go inside Azure Portal and do the drop down, if you do the easy way, two options only. So you really have to learn the CLI command. So you do this command, so the keyword is ACR build. You typed in -- registry, the name of your ACR registry, and then the image. This one is the login server that you have. It might be a Docker server, or it might be something else. And then the name of your container image and the version that you put the name to that. Now, when you continue working with your container images in Azure Functions, you also need to update your Azure Functions, because you updated the container app for it, right? And inside it, you have an Azure function. But your container might be in a new version. So you can first check what is the container associated with this function app using this command, and then you configure it to use a specific container image version or tag that you need to associate. And this is the command for that. So AZ function app config container set. You choose your image, the image name, the registry, password for like authentication if you have set that, depending on how the identity or authentication is set up. And then the name of the app, the function app, and then the resource group that you're trying to update. So when it comes to Azure Container Apps, there's one feature that I think is good. I think it's also new. There's what they call workload profiles, pretty new, in which it's a feature that allows you to have better control in terms of which profile are you going to use for a specific container app or type of group of services. And it kind of like solves some kind of like mix up of different things. So it's kind of like isolated the profiles in a way that you can choose your Azure region and then a profile for that, for this group of container apps or containers. So these are the type of profile that is supported. So there's consumption, dedicated, and then dedicated enabled depends on GPU or memory that you're trying to prioritize. So these are like potential use case. Probably it will be improved more because this is a very new feature between the two serverless compute services. But if you have that need of GPU versus memory, then it's good to consider the profiles to solve certain problems. So I'm gonna just like share a bit. I think I have about 15 minutes of your time. So I'll try to show you what I have. So I have two examples. First, I'm gonna show you how you can build Azure Container Apps as a service itself using Azure Developer CLI, which is one of the developer tools that I've been using and sharing about. Who worked with Azure Developer CLI? AECD, it's new. Yes. So first here is that, let me share. So when you're using ACD, Azure Developer CLI, it's another tool, but it allows you to create a starter template for Azure Container Apps. So let's see. This. So it has templates for all of the languages, for all types of templates, including container apps and Dapr. And the friendlier version of it is actually here. I'll show you. So you're just doing it on the CLI, but there is a tool called Awesome ACD. Let me show. So here, if you are someone that never deployed resources before, and you wanna I wanna get a proof of concept, a get started template. This is one of the open source tool that I wanna recommend as well. So what you can do is you can choose between Microsoft Author or community authored because it's open source. You choose the language, for example, .NET and C#, the framework. There's Blazor as well. And then you kind of choose what kind of services that you want to build within Azure. So let's say Azure Container Apps. And then for infrastructure as code, of course, it's Bicep that's default. So you filter it out. And one of the examples that I think is good is this one. So if you want to build a microservice application that has Dapr enabled PubSub built in inside it, with infrastructure as code, with with DevOps pipelines prepared for you. You just have to customize it. And then C#, Azure Service Bus. Using ACD, you just like ACD, you develop, configure it, you do the ACD app, it deploys to Azure. Of course, you need to authenticate yourself, but this is one of the good ways to get started deploying Azure Container Apps. And then once you have it, you can customize the template to have Azure Functions inside that container app. So if you want to go there, it's like AKAMS / awesome ACD. I'll try to give the link to my presentation also later. So basically what I was just trying to show you is that I used this what do you call template in one of my demos. And just to show you how it looks, so this is in the second demo. So this first one is that it has a folder dedicated for Azure resources. So I created one environment called Suite to Gothenburg 2024 AC Demo. And inside it, I have my configurations for like App Insights, container environment. I can customize the name if I want, but this is just a demo. So I just put like it's a default random on the template. And then the name of my like publish service bus, my API, and other parameters that I have. And then inside this, I can configure for this environment a specific like default environment. Like for example, I want my environment to be called Suite to Gothenburg. This long text. It should have been short, but this will be the one that will be used as the resource group name when I deploy to Azure. And then there is also like this is the checkout folder is a source code for a microservice, which has an integration with Dapr. So it's basically it is just like a loop of numbers. 20 orders, someone ordered something, 1 to 20, and then that gets published to a service bus. And the service bus has the pub sub that then the order processor, which is another sidecar like Dapr enabled service, is gonna take in to process. It's like a microservice talking to each other. So once it is received through the back-end communication in between, then it gets processed and there's a lot of things going on. So it's just a very simple example. But basically what I did is just I just deployed it earlier. It takes time, so I kind of like, oh, it's not here. It's not here. But it did deploy to Azure. And to show you that, this is how it worked. So it did push the checkout, the orders. It has a container apps environment as like the box where you can put it inside. It has the API management, the service bus. And that's how you create it using ACD up and then the deployment type of it. And that this template also includes like infrastructure as code such as Bicep. So you can also customize if you want to build more and then build more services within it. And then this one is the demo for the function app. So I only have one function app, which is like an HTTP trigger. So what I did is just like, because it took time, so I couldn't do like demo, live demo because it takes time. So what I did is that I build it up just like the steps that I shared. So I build the function app, I tried to publish it, test it locally, and then deploy it to Azure Functions. So it's very simple inside it. And this is how the result was. Let me show you. So this one. So this is an HTTP function app. So inside it is a container. And inside I have my revisions and replica, my containers. I can set up the scaling, the ingress. Dapr if I want it enabled or not, identity, service connectors if I want as well. I have another example of the deployment. So this container app has this one. So I did associate the container app that I have registered in the registry. So I have a few minutes. Let me see. Any questions, by the way? No? No questions? Okay, so I'm going to share the copy of my presentation later. So what we learned so far is like we just like made a concept or the understanding of like a simple app to Azure Container application. How we can associate this like Azure Functions into a container registry or the other way around. So there's so different layers of it. And then how to use Azure Developer CLI as well to build container apps and other resources. So those three tools, I think, are worth like checking out, especially the ACD and this new feature of ACA. Learn by doing. I mean, I will only introduce you these things. I have a lot to share, but I myself is also learning on this by action, and I recommend you to learn by doing as well. Check it out when you have time on the weekend in your man's cave. Do that. So Azure Functions is the QR code for container apps, and .NET, of course, our favorite language. And then there's a VS Code extension called Azure Container Apps. It's still on preview on VS Code, but it is something that kind of like make the development easier instead of you installing a lot of things inside your computer and then your computer gets out of memory. So there is an extension for that, so check it out. And then one of the speakers from Microsoft, Safia, just approached me on the speaker room and said, Jonah, there's going to be Azure Functions and .NET Aspire will be supported soon. And she shared, this is still in preview, but she shared a repo that she's been working on when it comes to using Azure Functions and .NET Aspire together. So feel free to check it out because I think it's going to be coming, especially if it's still on preview now. And then more questions before I let you go. No? Okay. I'm working for Solidify, so I'm showing the QR code to you. But otherwise, feel free to reach out to me anytime. That's my dog, Lawrence, a Labradoodle. I miss him when I'm not at conference, but I'm not sure if I can train my Labradoodle to stand on stage while I'm talking about tech because it's going to be chaos. Anyway, thank you so much for attending my session. I really appreciate your time. And have a good day, like glasses. Enjoy.